The roof tile factory set up at a cost of $37 million to develop the high-quality clay deposits on site at Hawaii. In full production, 15,000 to 20,000 tiles a day were made 6 days a week, with enough clay to last more than 20 years. But even then, the company's debt had blown out to 3 times the foreseen amount. Then equipment proved to be unreliable. But the final straw came more recently. 6 months of unprecedented rain hit production, while the depressed housing industry spelled a slump in demand. Despite moves to cut operating costs, the public company's shares reflected the downward slide, falling from a high of $1 back in 1987 to a current value of between ½ and 1 cent. Company directors decided to sell the business as a going concern, but late on Friday the major creditor, the State Bank of New South Wales, called in receivers. The dream of setting up a terracotta floor tile plant and specialised brick plant never reached fruition. While the receiver ponders the future of the company, it is hoped the plant, which employs around 100 people, will continue to operate. Under the Department of Planning's proposal aired last week, this area will be developed for new housing. It will amount to 40 hectares or 18% of the privately owned 220-hectare Greenpoint estate. Lake Macquarie Council has already spent $1 million on buying a 40-hectare portion of land. Now the state government has offered to match that money to buy part of the northern section, with the remainder handed over for bushland reserve. That offer was the result of a task force recommendation.
We've moved through council that 4 people should represent council on any negotiations or discussions on Greenpoint. They're 4 of the aldermen, and none of those aldermen, to my knowledge, has had any contact with the task force.
The government has always claimed that Lake Macquarie representatives were on the task force. Today, the Mayor sent an urgent request to the Cabinet Office to learn the names of those mystery people. Tonight, Council is due to discuss a new draft environmental plan.
Well, I think first of all, one of the points will be that the council has stated in the past they want 100% park. Now, I'm not foolish enough to think that that's achievable in this day and age, but that will be one of the things that will be discussed.
And it is expected that Council will opt to keep the large gravel quarry at Greenpoint zoned for that purpose, perhaps even indefinitely. Rebecca Skinner for NBN News.
The one common factor in the issue is that everybody wants a piece of Greenpoint. Last year, the council paid $1 million for a 40-hectare parcel of the privately owned land and reserved it for parkland. At that time, the state government ruled out any financial help, but is now offering to match the council's expenditure to buy most of the northern area known as the estate. Representing about 1/5 of the land, it would be used for residential development. Upon that sale, the owner would dedicate the rest of the land as open space. But Council is suspicious. The plan is the recommendation of a state government task force that claimed to have consulted council representatives.
We've moved through council that 4 people should represent council on any negotiations or discussions on Greenpoint. They're 4 of the aldermen, and none of those aldermen, to my knowledge, has had any contact with the task force.
The Mayor has sent an urgent request to the Cabinet Office to learn the names of those mystery people. Council is holding an extended committee meeting tonight to adopt its plan of action.
For 3 years, the Bolton Point Marmong Point Progress Association has fought a bitter battle to stop Longwall mining in their area. However, in July, mining was approved, with the FAI Taralba Colliery awarded the job. With time running out, the residents are now looking to the courts for help.
Well, the mining has been approved by the Minister, and we believe that if we can find that there are any illegalities in the approval process, then an injunction should be called upon, put on the company to stop the mining.
Laurie Mead from the Progress Association says the approval for mining under a residential area could be illegal.
Under common law, we believe that surface owners are entitled to subjacent support. That means they can't take the support away from beneath your property.
The Minister for Minerals and Energy, Neil Pickard, has denied any questions of illegality. Mr Pickard says work will continue as planned. The Progress Association now faces a wait of at least 3 weeks for findings from their lawyers.
All roads led to the beach today as the mercury soared into the high 20s. The early arrival of summer weather coincided with the school holidays, and the sand and surf played host to the sort of crowd usually reserved for December. The slip, slop, slap message was obviously well received, especially when it meant you could look like your favourite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. The bodyboarders used their wetsuits to deal with the still chilly water, but for the swimmers, a quick dip became a test of character. Strangely though, for many, swimming was the last thing on their mind.
No school, the sun, the surf, the guys. What more can I say?
Mate, just the sun gets me out. Doesn't matter if it's cold or hot, as long as the sun's shining, it'll do me.
I came because I live in Sydney and I have friends here and I love the beach here. It's much nicer than the ones in Sydney. They're mostly all polluted and yeah, they're much nicer.
To get a suntan and to, I don't know, check out some boys.
A winner of 6 state titles, the Australian Junior Championship in 88 and 89, and a national representative last year to New Zealand, Hobson's dream of a shot at a world amateur title is now a reality. Last year, after being named in the team, it was discovered he was too young by 4 months for the Under-19 Championships. But this year, he's raring for a crack at the Cubans, Russians, Americans and the Africans. Hobson's training sessions are torturous.
I've been training pretty hard with Wally. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go for a run about 5k. Then when I come back, I do sprints, and then at 8 o'clock I come in with Wally Bentley, my trainer, and do 10 rounds in the bag and a lot of work on my stomach.
And there is only one thing on his mind as he contests the 57-kilogram featherweight division.
No one trains for the silver. That's always a boxer's aim, to win the gold, and that's what I want to stick around for the Olympics and see how I go there. But it's just a sponsorship because it's pretty. It costs a lot of money to get around in the sport.
Therein lies a problem. For Hobson to make it to Lima, Peru, $3,000 alone for airfares. Outside of a fundraising evening at the Cricketers' Arms Hotel Thursday week, it's a tough battle to come up with the money, one that according to trainer Wal Bentley should not have to be undertaken when you represent your country.
If he was a kid that was on drugs or something, they'd be spending $1 million to rehabilitate him, but a kid that does the right thing from the outset and keeps off all that rubbish, he seems to have to battle his own way through.
How good is this young kid?
This kid is very good. He's one of the best kids I've ever handled, you know, and that's saying something because I've had some good ones in my last 25, 30 years, you know.
Those killed were Donald and Daphne Stevenson of Colborough, Alexander Dredge of Mount Pritchard, Dulcie Swan of Hamilton, Myrtle Dunlop of Georgetown, Olive Cook of Hornsby, Julia Graham of Cook's Hill, Lil Andrews of Lambton, Weira Kroll of Waratah, Phyllis Hinchcliffe of Merriweather, and Elaine Barron of Yagoona.
It's 5 days of thrills for the children, a break from hospital, schoolwork and even mum and dad.
And it's all about giving children a lot of fun and a good time while they come up to camp.
At Tocal this week, the children aged between 4 and 16 years have driven in vintage cars, flown in hot air balloons and helped the local blacksmith. Camp Quality works in association with the Mater Hospital. Medical staff are with the children helping with medicines or any problems. For each child too, a companion. Volunteers like 20-year-old Chris Randall, who in the week build special relationships with their new friends.
We've got a hard battle and we've got to give a bit back. It's really personal. You're with him 24 hours a day. It's a great bond. Yeah.
The Valuer General surveyed the sales of 1,000 blocks of vacant land in Lake Macquarie to arrive at a new set of values. Since the last survey in 1981, most values have doubled, and on the waterfront, they've tripled. At Toronto, land once valued at $25,000 has now topped $70,000 on average. As council rates are traditionally pegged to land values, many Lake Macquarie residents fear they're to face a massive hike in council-related costs. The town clerk reported to Alderman last Monday night that residents who last year paid $1,200 in council rates could now expect to pay as much as $2,800 a year. On Newsnight last night, Lake Mayor Ivan Welsh predicted his council would buck the system.
We should tell the state government that we are not going to use this year's valuations because they're disproportionately high throughout the city in certain parts, and they don't benefit anybody. They don't benefit one sector against the other. All they do is cause a fear or a panic, if you like, with the people that have been hit with these super enormous rates, because they're a monstrous increase. As I say, one man down there is going to be charged rates which are half his pension.
Mayor Welsh will be lobbying aldermen for a radical bipartisan approach to the setting of next year's rates.
We intend to put it to council that we defy the government and stay with last year's valuation figure as a base, and that we move from there.
A special public forum has now been called for 10 o'clock this Friday morning to try and clear the anxiety and confusion which the new land values have generated.
The Wallaroo Conservation Group is angry. So too more than 700 Port Stephens residents who have put their names to a petition damning extensions to the Tomago smelter.
We're calling on government to conduct a full public inquiry into this development, because there was so much concern in the community that we've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Tomago Aluminium plans to increase its smelting capacity by 75% by building a new potline and extending two others. The residents fear pollution problems, and despite an environmental impact study which was on show at council for 40 days, they say the application has been rushed through. The petition will now be sent to State Parliament, urging the government to intervene. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Always strong in defence, it was attacked that Waters lacked, but last night a new boy emerged. Again Waters threw the right hand with accuracy. Fiddler couldn't find the mark at all. With a convincing first round performance, it was no surprise it was all over in the second. Now all Guy Waters wants is a shot at Dennis Andre's world title.
I'm just hoping now that we do get this world title against Dennis Andres. I'm really looking forward to that one.
The Kings needed to get the fundamental plays right.
Keogh bounce pass inside to Ribon. This is his bread and butter.
And then borrowed a bullet-style attack to rev up the 5,000 fans.
What a great slam by Morrissey.
In a twinkling, the Kings had overcome their tardy start.
And Damien Keogh has given the Kings the lead, 19-17.
Sydney led by 6 points at the end of the first half, but the Bullets reined in the Kings to lead 67-66 late in the third quarter.
They'll do it through McGraw.
Through Keogh's night haul of 26 points, Sydney edged ahead in the final term before this from the Kings guard.
Right in front of the referee, scores. Well, I don't think there's been a better play from the Kings since the club was formed.
The Kings won at 98-87 and head to Brisbane for Game 2 tomorrow.
The New South Wales Constabulary faced a daunting sight when they took to the field at the International Sports Centre. The Auckland side was led by Alfred Filipana, who looked every bit as big and mean as his famous brother Olsen. Still, it was the locals who put the first points on the board through nippy halfback Jim Bunfield. Then, just moments later, they were in again. A penalty made it 14-0, but the Kiwis gave a glimpse of things to come with this reply. Both sides traded tries early in the second half before Cardiff's Mark Hanlon virtually sealed the game. Still, the Kiwis weren't done, and they rallied late to draw within 4 points. The final moments were tense, and big prop Ray Beecroft found himself penalised for assault without occasioning actual bodily harm after this encounter. The Hooter beat the Kiwis, but they lost no friends with a wholehearted effort. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The Japanese business leaders are on a 3-day tour of Newcastle to reinforce the bonds of a sister-city relationship established between the two chambers last year. Speaking through an interpreter, President of the Ube Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Matsumoto, said the 900-kilo granite lantern is styled on those first introduced into Japan with the arrival of Buddhism in about 500 AD. The lantern will stand in the courtyard of the Newcastle Regional Museum, where it's hoped it will grow a good covering of moss, a quality highly prized by the Japanese. employees. The business leaders will continue their tour today with a visit to Newcastle University and an inspection of BHP and the harbour coal loading facilities.
Ireland's Rebecca Best was a more than interested spectator at Charlestown today as she checked the form of some up-and-coming Australians. She knows by next week they could be standing between her and a shot at a world title.
It's only here at the warm-up tournaments that you get to see the depth of the Australian players, because only so many of them travel overseas to play, only the top ones. But that doesn't mean the others aren't any good. There is a lot of depth here.
The world number 10 is just one of many top-ranked internationals to take up the offer to play in the Hunter. She's aiming to at least secure a place in the quarter-finals at the World Open, but admits if she doesn't do her homework here, she'll need the luck of the Irish to even get through the early rounds.
I do have a chance, and it would be great to get to the quarters, because I've never been to the quarters of a World Champs. But I've got 3 rounds before that. Probably against Australian girls who I don't know really, so I'm going to have to watch them as well.
The Charlestown semi-finals will be played on Thursday night, with the decider scheduled for 6 p.m. on Friday. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
In NBN News tonight, a dramatic sea rescue for 4 people after their hot air balloon went down off the Queensland coast. For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Damien's been dancing since he was 10 years old. 2 years in a West Lakes ballet school were followed by 5 years at Macdonald College in Sydney. At 16, he was the youngest principal to ever dance in an Australian opera production. Now, at age 17, he's been accepted at the School of American Ballet in New York.
They have great teachers over there, and it's sort of a different technique as well from what they have in Australia. They have the Balanchine technique, which is Russian, which is a lot more free, and you can sort of let yourself go, and which I think is for me.
Airfares, accommodation and tuition will cost $20,000 a year. A third of that money has come from the federal government's Department of Employment, Education and Training. But the shortfall has come from local fundraising, and much of it through the Awabakal Newcastle Aboriginal Cooperative. Now Damien has to live up to his sponsors' expectations. Positions at the school are reviewed each year. But the reward for effort is a high-profile career in the world capital of dance.
One day I hope to bring back, all my experiences which I've had to other Australians who don't have the opportunity to go overseas to, get that sort of experience.